He worked every day. He paid his bills. He did everything society told him to do. But at 32 years old, Daniel Carter was still broke, exhausted, and one emergency away from losing everything. Then one morning, at 5 a.m., outside a hospital, he made a decision that changed his life in 90 days. Not because he got lucky, not because someone rescued him, and not because waking up early was some kind of magic trick. His life changed because he finally stopped using his time to survive and started using it to build. Daniel lived in a small industrial town in Ohio. He had no college degree, no savings, no connections, no backup plan. His apartment was a tiny studio on the edge of town. One mattress, one folding table, one old laptop, a flickering lamp, and a stack of bills he tried not to look at. Rent, gas, groceries, phone bill, and every month, something for his mother's medication. By the time his paycheck came in, most of it was already gone. Daniel worked the evening shift at a logistics warehouse from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. He loaded packages, checked delivery slips, cleaned the loading dock, helped track trucks coming in and out. It was honest work, but it was not building his future. Every night he came home around 10:30, exhausted and quiet. He would heat up a cheap frozen meal, sit on the edge of his mattress, and scroll on his phone until midnight, sometimes later. Not because he enjoyed it, but because it helped him forget, for a little while, how stuck he felt. Then he would wake up late the next morning, already behind, already tired, already feeling like the day had started without him. And every day, the same thought sat heavy in his chest. Is this really all I'm ever going to be? The worst part was, Daniel was not lazy. He showed up. He worked hard. He never missed a shift. He did what he was told. But hard work alone was not changing his life, because Daniel was working hard to survive, not working hard to grow. And there is a difference. He had applied for better jobs before: office assistant, warehouse coordinator, inventory clerk, customer service. But most of them wanted experience he did not have. Some wanted a degree. Some wanted computer skills. Most never called him back. He thought about learning something new: Excel, bookkeeping, maybe a certification. But after work, he was tired. And when he woke up late, he already felt like he had lost the day. So he kept telling himself, maybe next week. But next week had become the most dangerous lie in his life. Then one cold night in November, and his phone rang at 1:37 a.m. It was his younger sister. Her voice was shaking. "Daniel, you need to come now. Mom's in the hospital." Daniel sat up immediately. His mother lived in a small rural town about 3 hours away. She was the kind of woman who never complained. The kind of woman who said, "I'm fine," even when she was not. The kind of woman who had worked 2 jobs, raised her children alone, and still asked Daniel if he was eating enough. He drove to the community hospital as quickly as he safely could. The entire drive, one thought, kept repeating in his mind. If I had more money, maybe she wouldn't have to keep pushing herself like this. When Daniel walked into the hospital room, his mother looked smaller than he remembered. Her face was pale. Her hands were thin. Her voice was weak. The doctor said she had collapsed from exhaustion, stress, and health problems she had ignored for too long. She needed medication, better food, follow-up care, more rest. On the small table beside her bed, Daniel saw the paperwork, a prescription list, a follow-up appointment, and a balance insurance would not fully cover. Daniel stared at those papers, and something inside him sank. These were the things he wanted to handle. These were the things a son should be able to help with. But he could barely keep himself above water. He sat beside her bed and held her hand. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then his mother looked at him and whispered, "Daniel, I don't want you to spend your whole life just surviving." Daniel looked down. She continued, "You're a good man. You work hard. But hard work without direction can keep a person trapped for years." Those words hit harder than anything anyone had ever said to him. Because deep down, he knew she was right. He was working, but he was not building. He was tired, but he was not growing. He was surviving, but he was not becoming the man he knew he could be. That morning, before sunrise, Daniel stepped outside the hospital. It was exactly 5 a.m. The street was quiet. The sky was still dark blue. The air was cold. A few trucks passed on the empty road. A diner sign buzzed in the distance. Daniel stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets, and for the first time in years, he stopped asking, "Why is my life like this?" And he said to himself, "Enough. I can't keep living this way. Not next year, not when life gets easier, not when someone finally gives him a chance. Now, right now." And if you have ever felt that same pain, like you are trying, but your life is still not moving, comment number 1 below. Comment number 1 if you are tired of feeling stuck. Comment number 1 if you know you need to change, but you do not know where to start. Comment number 1 if today you are done living like the old version of yourself. Because that morning, standing outside that hospital at 5 a.m., Daniel did not become successful, not yet, but something in the old Daniel finally broke, and a new version of him started to wake up. Later that morning, Daniel stopped at a small diner near the hospital. He ordered coffee, but barely touched it. His mind was still on his mother, her face, her voice, her words. Hard work without direction can keep a person trapped for years. A few tables away, an older man was reading a business book. Clean jacket, calm eyes, silver hair, a notebook open beside his coffee. Daniel recognized him. His name was Mr. Harris. He owned 3 auto supply stores in the area. People said he had started with nothing and built everything himself. But Mr. Harris did not look like some flashy rich man. His jacket was old. His coffee was black. His notebook was full of messy handwriting. Daniel had seen him around town before, but he had never spoken to him. That morning, something pushed Daniel to ask, "Excuse me, sir, do you come here this early every day?" Mr. Harris looked up and smiled. "Almost every day," Daniel asked. "Why?" Mr. Harris closed his book. "Because the early morning is the only part of the day nobody can steal from me." Daniel was quiet. Mr. Harris studied his face for a moment. "You look like a man carrying more than a cup of coffee." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "I guess I am." Mr. Harris pointed to the empty chair. "Sit down." Daniel hesitated, then sat. For the next few minutes. "Meant. You look like a man carrying more than a cup of coffee." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "I guess I am." Mr. Harris pointed to the empty chair. "Sit down." Daniel hesitated, then sat. For the next few minutes, he told Mr. Harris the truth about the warehouse, about his mother, about the bills, about feeling stuck, about working hard but going nowhere. Mr. Harris listened without interrupting. Then he said, "Daniel, I was broke at 29. Daniel looked up. Mr. Harris continued, "I slept in the back room of my first store for 6 months. I thought working 16 hours a day would fix everything. It didn't, because I was working hard, but I wasn't thinking. I wasn't learning. I wasn't building leverage." He tapped his notebook. "Most people don't need more time. They need protected time." Daniel frowned. "Protected time?" Mr. Harris nodded. "Protected time?" Mr. Harris nodded. "A part of the day that belongs to your future, before the world gets a chance to take it." He tapped the table again. "For me, that time is 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Daniel looked down at the coffee cup. Mr. Harris continued, "Those 2 hours changed my life. Not because 5 a.m. is magic. The clock is not magic. But at that hour, the world is quiet. No calls, no drama, no meetings, no excuses." He leaned forward. "That is when a broke man can learn a skill. That is when a tired man can rebuild discipline. That is when someone who feels behind can start catching up." Daniel felt something rise inside him. Not excitement, hope. A small hope. The kind that hurts, because it makes you imagine a life you are afraid to believe in. Daniel asked, "What would I even do with 2 hours?" Mr. Harris pulled a napkin toward him and wrote, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Build a skill, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Build your body and mind. Then he said, "The first hour is for a skill that can change your income. Excel, bookkeeping, inventory tracking, operations reports, sales, coding, design, a certification. But don't chase everything. Pick one skill. Stay with it for 90 days. Then he pointed to the second line. "The second hour is for your body and your mind. Walk, stretch, exercise, read, journal, plan your day, review what you learned." Daniel stared at the napkin. For the first time, change did not feel like a fantasy. It had a schedule. It had a structure. It had a starting point. Tomorrow at 5 a.m. But before Daniel left, Mr. Harris gave him 3 rules. Rule number 1, do not negotiate with the alarm. When it rings, get up. Not 5 more minutes, not 10 more minutes, not, "I'm too tired today." Because the moment you negotiate with the alarm, you teach your brain that your promises do not matter. Rule number 2, win the night before you try to win the morning. You cannot scroll until midnight and expect to wake up with power at 5 a.m. If you want your mornings back, you have to stop letting your nights be stolen. Rule number 3, the first week will hurt. Your body will fight you. Your mind will make excuses. It will tell you that you are too tired, too broke, too late, too far behind. But you cannot listen. Then Mr. Harris looked at him and said, "Give me 90 days. Daniel swallowed. Mr. Harris continued, 90 days of 5 a.m., 90 days of building skills, 90 days of training your body and mind. Training your body and mind. After that, come back and show me what you've built." Daniel looked down at his hands that had lifted boxes, cleaned loading docks, signed delivery sheets, held his mother's hand in a hospital bed. He knew it would be hard, but he also knew this. If he did not accept the pain of discipline now, he would live with the pain of regret for the rest of his life. So he looked at Mr. Harris and said, "I'll do it." Mr. Harris did not clap. He did not give a motivational speech. He just said, "We'll see. Everybody says that on day 1. That night, Daniel did something he had not done in years. He prepared for the morning. He turned his phone off at 10:15, placed it across the room, set his old laptop on the folding table, laid out his hoodie and shoes by the door, and wrote one sentence on a sticky note. "Don't negotiate." Then he went to bed. The next morning, Daniel's alarm rang at exactly 5 a.m. His room was dark. His body felt heavy. His eyes burned. His mind immediately started bargaining. "You're tired. You worked late. Start tomorrow." Daniel lay there for a few seconds. But those few seconds felt like war. On one side was the old life, the mattress, the excuses, the darkness, the same routine that had kept him trapped for years. On the other side was his mother's voice, Mr. Harris's challenge, and the sticky note across the room, "Don't negotiate." Daniel threw the blanket off and stood up. His feet touched the cold floor. In that moment, he was not richer. He was not smarter. He did not have a new job. But he had done something the old Daniel rarely did. He kept a promise to himself. He opened his old laptop and searched for free Excel tutorials. At first, nothing made sense. Cells, formulas, tables, data. His eyes burned. His head nodded forward. Twice, he almost fell asleep at the table. But he kept writing notes. That first morning, he did not need to master Excel. He only needed to not run away. At 6 a.m., he closed the laptop, put on his hoodie, and walked outside. The street was empty. The air was cold. His legs were tired. But as the first light came over the rooftops, Daniel thought, maybe this is how a life changes, not all at once, one decision at a time. The first week was brutal. Every morning, the alarm felt like an enemy. Every morning, his body begged him to stay in bed. Every morning, his mind gave him a new excuse. "This won't work. You're too far behind. People like you don't get ahead." And on day 12, Daniel almost quit. He woke up late, 5:47 a.m. For a moment, shame rushed through him. The old voice came back immediately. Up late, 5:47 a.m. For a moment, shame rushed through him. The old voice came back immediately. "See? You already failed. You might as well stop." Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Then he remembered something Mr. Harris had said at the diner. Discipline is not never falling. Discipline is getting back in position before the old life takes you back. So Daniel did not quit. He did not say, "I'll restart Monday." He opened the laptop at 5:52. He studied for the time he had left. Then he walked outside and did 10 minutes instead of 30. It was not perfect, but it was not failure. It was proof that the new Daniel was learning how to return. Day by day, he kept going. No applause, no results, no miracle. Just a tired man in a small apartment at 5 a.m., learning like his future depended on it. And in a way, it did. Around day 20, something changed. Daniel woke up before the alarm. He looked at the clock. 4:58 a.m. For a moment, he just stared at the ceiling. Then he smiled. Not because he had made it, but because his body was starting to believe his promise. The lessons began to make sense. He learned formulas. He learned how to organize data. He learned how to build simple spreadsheets. Then he started learning basic bookkeeping and inventory tracking. And slowly, he began to see his workplace differently. Before, the warehouse was just a place where he worked for a paycheck. Now, he noticed messy records, late deliveries, missing items, repeated mistakes, numbers no one was tracking properly. One shipment had gone missing 3 times in 1 month. The office blamed the floor team. The floor team blamed the paperwork. The drivers blamed the schedule. But Daniel saw something different. The problem was not just the people. The problem was the system. Nobody had one simple place to track what came in, what went out, what was late, and what was missing. By the 2nd month, the change was not just in his notebook. It was in his body. His morning walks made him lighter. His face looked less exhausted. His posture changed. His eyes looked clearer. One coworker asked, "Daniel, you look different. What happened?" Daniel smiled and said, "I'm changing my life 2 hours at a time." By the 3rd month, Daniel stopped only learning. He started applying. One morning after his 5 a.m. study session, he opened Excel and built a simple tracking sheet for the warehouse. Truck arrival times, departure times, inventory counts, missing items, late deliveries, notes for the manager. It was not perfect, but it solved a real problem. A few days later, Daniel gathered the courage to show it to his supervisor. He said, "I made something that might help us track the loading dock more clearly." At first, the supervisor barely looked interested. But then he leaned closer. He clicked through the sheet. He looked at the formulas. Then he looked at Daniel. "You made this?" Daniel nodded. "Where did you learn it?" Daniel said quietly. "Every morning at 5 a.m. The room went silent. For the first time at that job, someone looked at Daniel not like a warehouse worker just trying to get through a shift, but like a man with potential. From that day on, people started noticing him, not loudly, not all at once. But something had changed. Daniel was no longer just the guy cleaning the loading dock, no longer just the guy moving boxes, no longer just another employee waiting for the shift to end. He had seen a problem, taught himself a skill, built a solution, and had the courage to show it. Then came day 87. Daniel had just clocked in when his supervisor called him over. "Daniel, the operations manager wants to see you in the office." Daniel froze. His heart started pounding. For a second, the old fear came back. Did I mess something up? Was the spreadsheet wrong? Did I step out of line? He walked down the hallway to the office. Inside were his supervisor, the operations manager, and the warehouse owner. On the desk was the spreadsheet Daniel had made. The manager looked at him and said, "Daniel, we reviewed your tracking system." Daniel held his breath. The manager continued, "It's simple, but it helped us catch problems we've been missing for months. You understand the floor. You understand the workflow. And you've clearly been teaching yourself skills we need." Daniel could barely speak. Then the manager said the words he never expected to hear. "We want to move you into a 60-day trial as an operations assistant. You'll help with inventory tracking, basic reports, and coordination between the floor and the office. If you handle it well, the position is yours." For a moment, Daniel heard nothing. A 60-day trial, a better schedule, better pay, real experience, a way forward. Then the supervisor added, "And even during the trial, the pay will be a lot better than what you make now." Daniel looked down, not because he was ashamed, because he did not want them to see the tears in his eyes. He thought about his mother, her medicine, her bills, her words in the hospital. Hard work without direction can keep a person trapped for years. And in that moment, Daniel understood something. Those 90 days had not been wasted. Every morning he wanted to quit. Every lesson he barely understood. Every cold walk before sunrise. Every time he kept going when nobody noticed. It had all brought him to this room. Not luck. Preparation. The manager asked. "So, Daniel, do you want the opportunity?" Daniel looked up. His voice shook, but his eyes were steady. "When can I start?" The manager smiled. "Monday." That night, Daniel called Mr. Harris. When Mr. Harris answered, Daniel could barely get the words out. "Sir, I did it." There was silence. Daniel continued. "I wasn't perfect, but I didn't quit. And today, I got a real opportunity." Another pause. Then Mr. Harris said, "That's what matters. 5 a.m. is not a temporary strategy, Daniel. It is who you are becoming." Daniel looked around his tiny apartment. The same old lamp, the same cheap table, the same stack of bills. But somehow, the room felt different. It no longer felt like a prison. It felt like the last room of his old life. Daniel said, "I won't stop. This is who I am now." And if you are waiting for a door to open in your own life, remember this. The door did not open because Daniel wished for it. It opened because when someone finally looked his way, he had something to show. Comment number 2, if you believe you can change in 90 days. Comment number 2, if you are ready to learn a new skill, instead of only complaining about your situation. Comment number 2, if today you choose to prepare for the opportunity before it arrives. Because one day, when the door opens, the question will not be, "Did opportunity come to me?" The real question will be, "Did I become the kind of person who was ready to walk through it?" 1 year later, many people at the warehouse barely recognized Daniel. The tired warehouse worker had become an operations coordinator. He no longer dragged himself through each shift just to survive. He no longer woke up late, feeling like the day had already beaten him. He no longer felt invisible. But the thing that made Daniel happiest was not the new title. It was the day he moved his mother into a clean little apartment closer to him. It was not fancy, but it was warm, safe, bright. There was food in the fridge, medicine on the counter, a real bed in the bedroom. His mother stood in the doorway with tears in her eyes. She looked at Daniel and whispered, "Is this really for me?" Daniel smiled, even though his voice almost broke. "Yes, Mom, you don't have to worry anymore." It was one sentence, but it took him his whole life to be able to say it. And even after his life changed, Daniel still woke up at 5 a.m., not because he was desperate anymore, but because he understood something. The habit that pulled him out of survival mode was the same habit that would keep him from ever going back. One coworker asked him, "Daniel, you already made it. Why do you still wake up that early?" Daniel smiled and said, "Because success is not a place I arrived at. Success is what I do every day. So I don't betray the person I fought so hard to become." And that is the lesson. 5 a.m. did not magically change Daniel's life. The clock did not save him. What changed him was what he did with that quiet time. He built skills. He built discipline. He built health. He built confidence. He built the kind of person who could recognize an opportunity and be ready for it. That is the real secret. You do not need to change your whole life in one day. You just need to stop wasting the hours that could build your future. 1 hour to learn something valuable. 1 hour to strengthen your body and mind. One morning to prove that your word still means something. And then do it again, and again, and again, because your life will not change just because you are tired of it. Your life changes when you change what you do every day. So now, the question is for you. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, what will you do? Will you hit snooze like always? Will you tell yourself, I'll start next week? Or will you stand up, even when your body wants to stay down? Tonight, before you sleep, do 3 things. First, set your alarm for 5 a.m. Not 5:15, not 5:30, exactly 5 a.m. Put your phone across the room, so you have to stand up to turn it off. Second, choose one skill you will build in the first hour. Excel, bookkeeping, sales, coding, design, writing, a certification, a business idea. Do not choose 10 things. Choose one and stay with it for 90 days. Third, protect your night. Stop letting endless scrolling, random videos, and wasted evenings steal the person you could become. You cannot win the morning if you surrender the night before. If Daniel's story made you see a part of yourself, hit the like button as your commitment today. If you know someone who feels stuck, someone who keeps saying they want to change but never starts, share this video with them. This might be the reminder they need. And if you want more stories about ordinary people who change their lives through discipline, belief, and daily action, hit subscribe and join this channel. Every week, we bring you stories that do more than motivate you. They remind you that you are not weak. You just need to start keeping promises to yourself. Before you leave, comment below, I will start at 5 a.m. Or write the skill you are going to build for the next 90 days. So when you come back and see that comment, you remember the day you decided not to live like the old version of yourself anymore. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you have the courage to begin, and the discipline to continue, and the belief to keep going before the results appear. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, your future does not begin when life gets easier. It begins the moment you stop breaking promises to yourself. And for you, that moment could be tomorrow morning when the alarm rings at 5 a.m.